Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Robert from Mobile Burn, and today I will be giving you a review of the Sony Xperia Z. So first of all, let's start talking a little bit about the buttons and the hardware specs of the device. So taking you a look around the buttons here, you can see the power buttons on the right hand side of the device. It's the nice silver sort of round power button. Underneath you have the volume rocker here, so up and down. So nice convenient position, you can see here. You can easily access them with your thumb, don't have to sort of go to the top. Then next to that is the SIM card slot hidden underneath this flap. And this flap obviously provides the water protection you saw in the intro. Then on the top of the device you have the 3.5mm headphone jack. So there you can see the 3.5mm headphone jack at the top. Again, covered by a waterproof flap to make the phone, waterproof. On the left hand side of the device is the micro SD card slot. Underneath is a dock connector. And then that's pretty much it on this side. Then on the bottom you have nothing apart from a little bit of a serial number. And then there is the lanyard connector on the sort of bottom right corner of the device. And then next to that on the right hand side as well is a tiny speaker. And I'll get to that speaker in a minute. Then and on the front you can see the Sony logo, the front facing camera, and then nothing else apart from another speaker at the bottom. And then on the back you see the camera here and the LED flash, and then the Xperia logo, and then nothing else. The Sony Xperia Z features a quad-core 1.5 GHz Snapdragon processor and 2 GB of RAM. The GPU is an Adreno 320 GPU, the same as found in the Nexus 4. The screen is a 5-inch on a diagonal 1920 by 1080 display TFT with 441 ppi. The camera is a 2.2 megapixel front-facing camera, you can see here, and it features 1080p video shooting. And then on the back you also get a camera which is a 13 megapixel with an LED flash, and that does 1080p video as well as HDR video in 1080p. While we're on the back, underneath this glass here is a 2330 milliamp hour battery, but this is non-removable. And it also, as I said already, has the micro SD card expansion slot here. So sorry, on the left hand side here. And obviously that allows you to expand the storage. I only have the 16 GB version, but it supports up to 64 GB micro SD card slots. The operating system is Android 4.1.2, so it doesn't have the latest 4.2.1, but it's still, good enough and has still Project Butter built in. And as you saw in the intro, it is waterproof, and that's why all the ports are covered and all the flaps are sort of, are on top of the ports. So now taking a look at the lock screen, and you access your music controls by swiping in from the left, then you access your camera by swiping in from the right, then you also unlock it by just simply swiping up, but you also have the clock here. You don't get any other notifications on the lock screen, so simply just the time and then the two shortcut buttons. You have your alarm top left, but that's about it. You don't have any calendar info or anything like that. Then to unlock it, you simply just swipe up and then you get presented with this home screen here. And you do have 5 screens, but if you sort of pinch in, you get presented with this UI here where you can actually delete home screens. So for example, if you didn't want 5 home screens, you can actually get rid of, home screens, and that sort of, minimizes clutter rather than having to go between lots and lots of different screens. And you can see here, then you can assign which one you want the home one to be by, if I zoom in here, this button here at the top, there's a sort of a home, and then you also have the X. Then if you wanted more, you swipe over again and you get presented with the plus here. Let's zoom back out. So now the app drawer here, if I open that, you get presented with this app drawer. There's no sort of background to it. It seems to be the same one as you have on your home screen. And you can adjust the sort of app drawer by your own order, alphabetical, most used or recently installed. So it's a nice way that you can change this around. So most used straight away goes to what you've been using the most, which is a handy feature of having, I think, because rather than having to sort of swipe through different pages where with your apps, you can just have them organized that way. Or if you want it back, you can just go into alphabetical order here. Then you also get a search, so should you have a lot of apps, you just click the search button here and it allows you to search applications. Then you get a menu button as well where you can uninstall, share or customize. And customizing allows you again to, you know, add home screens, and then at the bottom here you can add widgets, apps, wallpapers and themes as well. Speaking of widgets, straight away, you don't really get too many widgets. You get the sort of standard widgets, and then the rest of it is just sort of whatever you download. So there are no sort of special, you know, amazing widgets there. You get the sort of standard social life, friends, and you know, what have you. The tools, sort of the shortcuts here. So let me show you that here. You can see the tools there. Other widgets, you get your Walkman widget, your weather. So nothing really that's too exciting here. Nothing worth really you know, talking about with that respect. Let's zoom back out here, and then if I access that again, wallpapers again, and apps allows you to actually drag apps onto, you know, your home screen if you want it to. Then going back into the app drawer, applications wise, like I said, most of the stuff is standard, sort of what you'd expect on every phone, calendar, calculator. There aren't any too sort of, you know, crazy apps that they've included. File Commander, which is a nice, let's see, zoom in that way. File Commander here sort of allows you to manage your application, your data. So for example, if you have music and stuff, copy, paste, you know, delete, that kind of stuff. All the other Google widgets, maps, stuff like that included. McAfee Security, or McAfee Security, however you want to pronounce it. Other than that, Notes as well comes as sort of a Sony standard Neo reader here. But most of the other stuff is exactly how how you'd expect a phone to sort of come preloaded with most of the stuff. Video Unlimited is like a Netflix alternative, that type of thing. Wise Pilot is probably the only, you know, app worth mentioning here. It has it's a sat nav rather than using Google Maps. If you're not happy with Google Maps, you can use Wise Pilot here. It does seem to do the job, but I'm a fan of using Google Maps, I suppose. But yeah, it's there for you if you want it to. Then going back to the home screen, you see the soft keys here. So you have your back, your home, and your multitasking button. To access Google now, you can either tap this search bar here, or you can actually swipe in, just like the Nexus phones, and swipe up, and it allows you to sort of start searching straight away and open your Google Now. One good thing I've noticed about the multitasking here, so you can, you know, swipe away as always, but then you also get these sort of mini apps or small apps or whatever they're called. And basically what this allows you to do, so for example, you can have a floating calculator here if you want it to, and then you can calculate something without having to leave the application, sort of a floating multitasking window. I think Samsung do this in a split screen way, so you can have an app at the top and app at the bottom, but here you can actually have more, and also it allows you to take pictures, for example, if that's where you want it to. So you can see here, you can take the picture and then share it, and then do, you know, whatever you basically need with it. But that's a nice feature to have, accessing it that way. Then keyboard. The keyboard is nothing really too amazing, if I'm being honest. It has the sort of standard, swiping features that you get, and it does support multi-language. But typing, you know, I've not really been too impressed with it. It does do okay, but sometimes the predictions get a bit funny, and also pressing the space button, I tend to sort of, it didn't tend to acknowledge it sometimes. And also you can see here I'm sort of more on the space bar, but it still, you know, selects the B. So maybe it's because I've got quite large fingers and it's difficult for me to type on such a small keyboard, but I did have problems. But it does have multi-language support, which is a nice feature. And then, you know, in the settings you can adjust skins as well. So if you wanted to, you could, for example, change the different colors there. You can see between whichever one you like. So if you like a darker one, there you go, you have a darker one, and you still get the swipe feature, which is nice. Then camera-wise, I've just opened the camera. Oops, I almost dropped the phone. Camera-wise, it does take quite good pictures. Unfortunately, due to this being 13 megapixels, the pixel sort of size is quite small, and you do get a little bit of noise in low light. But otherwise, it has been, you know, it has been impressive. The pictures have been very good. I've not had too many problems. There are tons of features. I'll try and see if I can show you that here, where you have access to so much stuff. There is, you know, I could talk to, you know, this is a whole separate video talking about this, but you get your video, your photo, your burst, sort of standard features, and then you get your panorama, but you can adjust every single setting pretty much like almost in a DSLR, where you can, you know, adjust your ISO, your white balance, you know, so many different features. You also have a smart auto button as well. So if you sort of have no idea how to take pictures, you could just leave it on the smart auto and, you know, go ahead and just take pictures, and it'll do the rest for you. But You can also do video in HDR mode, which is a new feature. I've not seen that on phones before, and it basically just gets a little bit more dynamic range. So for example, if you have really bright and really dark scenes, you can actually use HDR video to take a video, and you sort of, you know, get your, I don't know, your clouds won't be blown out, or your shadows won't be really dark. You'll get a little bit of sort of detail in those. So nice, really nice feature that's included in the HDR mode. I will add a 1080p HDR non-HDR comparison at the end of the video, so you know, do check it out and compare for yourself. Then battery life on this device, I've sort of got through a whole day with about, I don't know, 25% left every day. That's most of the time what I seem to get. And if I go and show you something that I tend to use, if you click on the settings and power management, you actually get presented with this thing called stamina mode, and this says disables mobile data when screen is off. Sorry. So if you turn the screen off, you actually it disables mobile data, so you won't get any push notifications through, and you know, basically turns off mobile data. So that preserves a huge amount of battery, and maybe that's why I've been getting through the whole day. I did notice occasionally that, you know, say if someone WhatsApped me or someone sent me an email, I wouldn't get it until I turned the screen on. So you don't get, like I said, the push notifications. But you can see the stamina mode's turned on. If I turn it off, you can see the standby time changes from 1 day and 7 hours to 4 hours. And that's because of the data being turned on or off. But I've pretty much got about 2.5 hours of screen on time. So, you know, not really had too many issues with that. My fiance's got the white version of this, and she's about 2.5 hours of screen on time. For a 1080p display and a 2330 milliamp hour battery is actually pretty impressive. Then talking a little bit about the cons of the device, and I did notice that there are more than sort of, you know, you'd expect from a high-end device like this. I mean, first of all, the speaker, it's absolutely crap, so don't expect to get any good music quality out of this. The speaker is absolutely tiny, and it's a really, really, really bad speaker. You don't have any sort of, you know, difference, you know, don't have any bass. It's just, you know, I wouldn't even bother using it. I'll just plug in a pair of headphones at the top and just use those. I mean, you'll get by watching YouTube videos, for example, if it's just, you know, spoken words or something. You're going to understand the person, but, you know, if you were to play music from this, don't bother, because it is really bad. Another thing I've noticed that happens is it gets really hot. And that's maybe to do with the next point, which is it sometimes doesn't charge with certain chargers. And what I mean by that is, for example, I'd plug it in overnight and leave something running. So for example, if I wanted to download a huge file, because I do have a 32 gig memory card in there. So for example, if I wanted to download, I don't know, a game or you know, a large file, because my internet connection at home is really bad. So if I was to download, say, 9 gig of data overnight, it actually stops working after a little bit and freezes, because it gets either too hot or the battery just won't charge and you'll just stay really hot. But like I said, it only works with certain chargers. So you know, the Sony charger works absolutely fine, but I've got a couple of chargers upstairs next to my bed, and then I've plugged it into one and woke up the next morning. I had like 67% before I went to bed. When I woke up, it was 3% left. So I had to, you know, turn the phone off and charge it to get any sort of battery throughout the day. So it's a bit of a strange one. I've never experienced this. Most other phones, if I used, for example, the Galaxy S3 or the Nexus 4, had absolutely no problems there. You know, I could use any charger, but this one, you know, gets hot and either freezes or just, you know, just doesn't charge. So a bit of a strange there. Also, another thing, and that's more my fiance picked that up, because the volume is very quiet. And what I mean by that is the handset volume. So if somebody rings you, she did say that as soon as it gets a little bit crowded, say on a tube or on a train or whatever, she can't actually hear the people speaking. And the volume is turned up to max, so I don't know what the problem is with that. I don't know why it sort of doesn't do it, why it doesn't go any louder, but I did notice that I used the Galaxy S3 and the volume was much louder, and she actually considers going back to the Galaxy S3 because the volume is just not loud enough. So a bit of a disappointment in terms of that. I've noticed the same thing, maybe not to that extreme, but then I'm maybe not as often in crowded areas, and you know, the speaker volume seems to be fine to me, but she is in crowded areas, you know, a lot, and you know, she has noticed that the speakers are very quiet. Next thing, the screen on the device, and I noticed that the screen is not very good. The color reproduction is not very sort of saturated, if that makes sense. I mean, I try and, you know, I've compared this to my Nexus 4, my brother's Nexus 4, and the screen just wasn't, you know, very, you know, rich in color. It might be difficult to see. I sort of have a wallpaper open here, and if I zoom in, but the purples, if I compare the same picture on a Nexus 4 or another Galaxy S3, for example, AMOLED IPS display, the colours would be much more vibrant and vivid. I've not noticed this here. I mean, I've not really seen the difference until I've actually gone back to the Nexus 4 and I gave it to my brother, and he said to me, "Wow, your phone doesn't really seem that bright." So this is a bit of a downside if if you're used to AMOLED screens, for example, or really good IPS panels. I mean, you can see here the viewing angles up start to disappear, and I know this is a glossy sort of screen, but you can see a slight tilt. I mean, this is pretty much frontal. And then as soon as I start tilting it slightly, you can see it goes a little bit, and then you can almost not see it. So, a bit of a shame on this screen. Even with Mobile Bravia engine turned on, I don't even dare to turn the Mobile Bravia engine off, because, I think the screen is going to be even worse. Just build quality wise, it's an all glass screen and all glass back. So you can see the phone's pretty much all glass apart from the side, which seems to be a bit of a plastic. So it's good, but I do have a case for it, and it's nice to hold. It does seem a bit slippery, so you don't sort of get the sort of nice grip on it. And it seems to have the same sort of build as the Nexus 4 in terms of glass front and back, almost like the iPhone 4S. Sorry, it's always glass front and back. So if you dropped it, I reckon it would scratch and break the glass front and back. Camera also is slightly recessed. I don't know if that's, but only a tiny bit. You have the sort of silver ring around it. That doesn't really give you any protection, but I think it might, just if you dropped it sort of back down, it would actually hopefully survive, and the rest of the screen would crack. But build quality wise, like I said, I would use a protective case for it, because it's not really a phone that you want to sort of leave lying around like this. There are other phones that are more rugged, like the the Galaxy line of phones, where it's all plastic, so you're not really bothered if the back scratches. Well, just get a new one. Whereas with this, you can't actually replace anything. But that really concludes the review of the phone. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to the channel for more content. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.